Good morning, everybody. I'm going to give my computer just a second to connect, and then we are going to get started this morning in this live session. All right, so here we go. Now, this morning, I'm going to be talking a little bit about therapy materials, also just how we can get better results with less effort when it comes to language therapy. And I get a lot of questions about what materials are the best, what app is the best for this, what worksheet, what resource, etc. And while those things alone are not a bad thing, of course, we all use apps, we all use materials and flashcards and games and things like that. We are actually asking the wrong questions if we want to get the best results in therapy and actually create true lasting outcomes. Because when it comes to gathering our materials, we know we're always looking for good materials, we're always looking for the best research and things like that. But there comes a point where too much can actually be a detriment to our therapy and to our results and also to our mental well-being. So that's what I'm going to go into today. So the thing is that a lot of us, and when you do a Google search for grammar worksheets or whatever it is, or even when you look at the research, you probably have found that you have a lot of options. And we would think that having a lot of options is a good thing. And sometimes it can be. You don't want to have no options, but there's actually some evidence and have been some studies that have shown that we are actually less able to make good decisions when we have too many choices. So think about this for a minute. A lot of times, a lot of people are trying to work out. And, but then when you go to a gym and you have no plan, you have no idea what you're supposed to do, and you walk in, there's all of these different options. There's the weight machines, there's the group fitness, there's the free weights, there's these cardio machines, and then there's the track that you can run on in the pool, and all of this different stuff. That can be really overwhelming. And if you don't have a clear plan, a lot of times what people end up doing is avoiding the decision or making a very poor decision, especially when they have had a rough day and they're mentally tired from having to make a ton of other decisions. So what they end up doing is saying, screw it, I'm not going to go work out or whatever it is. Same thing happens with food. When you don't have a clear plan about what you're actually going to do and you don't have those decisions made up front, what happens is that a lot of times you make a poor decision. So for example, if my husband and I have a very clear plan about what the meals are going to be all week, we make pretty good choices. But if we have no plan and we wait until Tuesday night and we're both starving, a lot of times we end up just going out to eat and eating something that's probably not as good, that might be more expensive, might be not as healthy as what we could have done. And if there is not a clear plan to follow that makes some of those decisions, decide some of those things in advance, what happens is that the quality of our decisions goes down because there's just too many things left to decide. I can think of so many times when my husband and I are both tired and we're kind of like, oh, I'm so hungry. What do you want to do for dinner? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? And we sit there and neither one of us wants to put forth the energy of making a choice. And when it comes to therapy planning, that can happen as well. So what happens is a lot of times we have a lot of different books. We've got a lot of different materials. And yes, I always say you can never have too many books. But when it comes to therapy materials in language therapy, a lot of times there are so many different options out there. And all of these little materials they're this one little piece, these random strategies that you could do, these random activities that you could do, but it's just kind of a big messy pile. A lot of the publishers just have this random pronouns worksheet or these WH question flashcards. And there are all these different random isolated strategies and they're not organized for you. So that puts a lot of the work on you to figure out okay, here's this big pile of stuff. What do I actually do with it? And that's actually a lot of work. So what ends up happening again is that you do the same thing that my husband and I do, which is that if we don't have a clear system about what we're going to do during the week, like my example that I gave was what we're going to eat, and we don't have a clear framework to follow, then a lot of times we end up just not knowing what to do. So for therapy, how it might look is that, you know, you're tired, it's the middle of the week, you don't have the rest of your sessions planned, and at the end of the day you're sitting there thinking, gosh, you know, I should sit down and plan what I'm doing next to my therapy. But you've already just spent the entire day dealing with behaviors, being on all day, working with teachers, having IEP meetings, or consulting with your administration, whatever it is. You've had to be on all day. You're tired. You want to go home, and you sit there and you look at that big pile in your shelves of materials, and you just think, oh, I just can't right now. I just can't sit here and think about what to do next. So what happens is that a lot of times, and this is what I would do, I would just, okay, whatever, I'll come in tomorrow morning early and do it. And then that wouldn't happen. And then I would end up just kind of grabbing something random off my shelves. And then I would feel bad because obviously I didn't have any kind of a clear plan or system. And I didn't know exactly what to do next with my students. So it was just kind of random stuff. And obviously my students weren't getting better because there was nothing strategic about what I was doing. Yeah, I was getting some of it right because I knew how to facilitate language, but there really wasn't a strategic process going on. So this is what happens to a lot of SLPs who are doing language therapy. It's just that there's no clear system, and there's always this feeling of I should be doing more. And then there's this feeling of guilt, but really what's happening is not that you're lazy, that you're not effective. It's really that you don't have a system, and you're simply leaving too many choices left up to chance. So really the key to being effective, which in a lot of people don't do, a lot of people do the opposite. The key to being effective is actually not having a million choices, not going out there and trying to get more stuff and more materials. The key is actually funneling down and focusing on fewer strategies and doing it within a structured framework so that you have clarity about what to do next. Because then all that you're saying yes to, all that you're deciding on the system up front. That's one decision. And then when you actually are at the end of your day, you've been in therapy all day, all you have to do is commit to that process, is to decide to continue the process. You don't have to decide, what should I do next? What worksheet should I do? What flashcards should I do? That, because you're following a clear protocol that has a clear next step or a clear, consistent process you can follow, what that allows you to do is that those decisions have already been made about what to do next because you've committed to that process. So having that clear framework, once you learn how to do it, answers a lot of those questions up front. And what that does is that it doesn't require you to make so many decisions on the fly because you've only had to really make one. There is something that's called decision-making fatigue. And basically what that means is that it's something that happens to us if we have to come up with too many things on the fly and decide too many things. That results in cognitive fatigue. And that, again, results in poor decision-making. And it just overwhelms us and burns us out. And so that's why a lot of people who are highly successful, you'll find that they have certain things automated in their processes. So for example, they might have their shirts all lined up and just kind of cycle through and not spend a lot of time figuring out what they're going to wear because they just kind of wear the next shirt in line. Or they might have eat the same few things for breakfast and lunch every day that they know are healthy and good. So they don't have to come up with, spend a lot of time deciding what to do for breakfast and lunch or maybe even dinner. they're in a routine, they're on some specific way of eating, so they don't have to make a lot of decisions about what their grocery list is, what they're going to eat on this day. They might be on a specific exercise protocol, so they don't have to decide, am I going to go to the gym today? What time am I going to go? And what am I going to do? They automate all those things. So if you want to be successful in language therapy and free up that cognitive space to actually work on other things, like maybe there are things at work that you would love to be able to do, but you feel like you can't because you are just drowning with therapy planning and all the paperwork that you have to do. When you actually automate things and you have a clear framework, then what that allows you to do is do it more efficiently, because you spend less time sitting there thinking, what am I going to do next? You just do it, and you can plan it quickly. And then that cognitive space that you free up from not having to make another choice, you can actually allow yourself to have that time and energy to do other things, even if all it is just leaving work at a reasonable time and not having to work all weekend, and having some free time for yourself or for your family after work. So for me, what it allowed me to do when I was able to create a consistent system for language therapy, what I was able to do was leave my work at work, and then I came home, and then I would have time to devote to my doctoral work. And so that enabled me to do that. And then once I was done with my doctoral work, I started working on my website and my blog, and actually creating programs for SLPs, like Language Therapy Advanced, where I actually show people the system for language therapy that I was able to implement. So I was able to create time and space for those things. I know a lot of other SLPs who've done other things, like maybe they want to teach at the university, maybe they want to have a side hustle, start a private practice, maybe they want to have another way to generate income that has nothing to do with being an SLP, whatever it is. But those types of people learn to create systems in their lives so that they can actually create that time and space, so they're not constantly running from one thing to another. But the problem is that if you have too much clutter and too many materials and too many decisions left undecided, it can be really hard to actually get ahead and create space to do that. So that is why I recommend actually not having a ton of materials, but actually having fewer materials that you know work, so that you have fewer choices. And you will be amazed. A lot of times people think, oh, it'll be boring, my students will get bored. A lot of times it's actually you that are getting bored, because you're the one that's got to repeat them. And if you have students who are actually engaged in their learning and you're actually getting good results, you don't have to have all these bells and whistles and reinforcements. And yes, it's fine to incorporate a game here and there and things like that. But don't use it as a Band-Aid. When students are engaged, you actually don't need that much stuff. You can actually deliver an effective therapy session with what you have, with a pencil and paper and dry erase board or whatever it is. You can make those things exciting when kids are actually excited about learning. You can keep it simple. So that is my recommendation. That is what, rather than getting more, we want to try to figure out how to do more with less and create those systems so that we can free ourselves to have that space to do, to go above and beyond what we're currently doing. So thanks so much, everybody, for watching. If you found this video helpful, I would love if you would either invite your friends to the Effective Language Therapy for SLPs Facebook group, or share this video with your friends. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching.